Jan, we're good? Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everybody. My name is Jamie West. Je m'appelle Jamie West. Je suis le député, je m'excuse. Je suis le candidat NDP, NPD pour Sudbury. I want to say hello to everyone and welcome everybody. I want to thank my colleagues from across the north coming to join us here today. It's my pleasure to introduce someone who's absolutely amazing. Before I do, though, I want to give a land recognition. So my riding of Sudbury, the core city of Sudbury and Coppercliff, we are in the traditional territory of the Tikmishing and Shopix people. We're part of the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory of 1850. I know there's a lot of different territories being represented, so please take a moment to think about your territory and what it means for the first people of our country as well. Many of us as settlers, I think it's important we reflect on the importance of what we have, what role we have in those treaties, and how do we make things better in the future as we move forward in that good way. It is my pleasure to introduce you to my friend, to our leader, pour, je pense, le second chef qui parle en français de tous les partis, le chef des partis MPD, the leader of the Ontario NDP, Marit Stiles.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Jamie. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon, I guess. Bonjour tout le monde. It is great to be here in Sudbury, and I am so happy to see everyone here with us today. I also want to start by pointing out that we have a very strong Northern team that are joining me here today, including, of course, Jamie West from Sudbury, France Jelina from Nickel Belt, John Vantoff is here from Temiskaming Cochrane. David Temersky from Algoma, Manitoulin is with us today. And Jim Runholm is here from Parry Sound, Muskoka. That is a team that is on your side, right here in the north. And we are so excited to share our plan today for Northern Ontario. We're standing here at Science North's underground mine exhibit, honoring the hard work of Sudbury's miners. And that's no coincidence because, you know, Ontario's workers are the heart of this province, whether it's in mining or steel or forestry, agriculture, or so much more. An NDP government is going to defend Ontario jobs and ensure that every dollar spent in Ontario supports Ontario-built steel, Ontario-mined minerals, and Ontario-grown food. Ontarians are, already feeling squeezed. That's the thing. And tariffs are only going to drive all the costs higher. And what I hear all the time from people is they want action. Real plans that secure jobs, that safeguard our industries, and that are going to keep our economy strong. Doug Ford, he won't stand up for workers, but I will. And my message to you is a simple one. The Ontario NDP is on your side. Right on. And today, I am proud to make that commitment to the North in writing by sharing our plan to fight rising costs and make life better for people. Today, I want to share two concrete ways that the NDP is going to help Northerners make ends meet and also get the care they need. If you've been to the grocery store lately, you know what I'm talking about. Families are stretching their paychecks thinner and thinner and trying to keep food on the table. And up here in Northern Ontario, the prices are even higher. And that's why I'm putting forward a plan that's going to give you relief from these grocery costs. Our monthly grocery rebate is going to give back $122 a month to families who need it the most. I think it's a game changer for a lot of people out there. But we're also going to go after unfair grocery pricing by forcing the big grocery CEOs to tell you when they raise prices more than 2%. Just like when you post the ads up that say, this is going on sale. Well, if you're going to raise prices by more than 2%, you're going to have to post about that and explain it too. Right on. Yeah. And we're also going to bring in a new consumer watchdog who will stop the price gouging. But the cost of living, it's not just about groceries. We all know that. Rents are rising. It's making it harder for many families to stay in their homes. Here in Sudbury, rent has gone up $369 a month since Doug Ford took office. I want to just say that again. Let it sink in. It's $400 more a month almost to rent per month in Sudbury since when Doug Ford was elected. That's 7 years. In Thunder Bay, it's gone up almost $385 a month. People are struggling, and yet Doug Ford refuses to step in and help. Now, I gotta say, I have been so fortunate to spend a lot of time in Northern Ontario. And without a doubt, the top issue I do hear about as well is healthcare. We all know how bad things have gotten under the Liberals, from hallway medicine to nursing cuts. But Doug Ford said he was gonna fix things, right? Well, after 7 years of Doug Ford, we can see how things have turned out. Things got worse, not better. Too many people in Ontario don't have a family doctor. And here in Northern Ontario, and I'm going to give you an example, in Hearst, for example, it's 3 out of 4 who don't have a doctor. Well, I think Northerners deserve better than what they've gotten from Doug Ford. And that's why, as Premier, I'm going to hire 200 family doctors and 150 specialists all across Northern Ontario. We're going to double residency spots at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine University. Yeah. And we're also going to bring back the midwifery program to Sudbury, right? So that families, because families need to have the care they need right here at home. And I know how far you have to drive for health care. You shouldn't be scared for your life as you travel on northern highways. It's not rocket science to fix this problem. We're going to bring that money that Doug Ford spent down south, we're going to bring it back up to the north to widen highways 11 and 17, as well as Highway 69, and we are going to build the Cochrane bypass. And I want to stress as well, because this is something our team at Queen's Park from all over Northern Ontario have worked really hard to push for. We need to get truck drivers the training they need, so they know how to handle winter driving up here. It is not the same. Vous dépendez des autoroutes plus que toute autre partie de la province, mais les routes sont trop souvent dangereuses. Ce n'est pas sorcière. Nous investissons argent dans le Nord pour élargir les routes 11 et 17, ainsi que la route 69, et nous construirons la voie de contournement de Cochrane. Tu sais, nous comprenons l'importance de la langue et de la culture de les soins de santé. C'est pourquoi nous allons nous assurer que les francophones et les communautés des Premières Nations reçoivent des soins à domicile et des soins de longue durée fiables dans leur propre langue. Nous bonifierons les services de santé en français et ouvrirons plus de centres, de foyers de soins et de services pour la santé mentale et la toxicomanie. We know that there's so much more that we can do to uplift this region and stand with the families who call it home. This platform reflects our commitment to you. Our commitment to the North is more than just words. It is who we are as New Democrats. And as Premier, I promise to tackle the cost of living with concrete actions that put real money back in your pocket every month and deliver the health care when and where you need it. That is my promise to you. Now, I want to say I am so happy that we are joined here as well today by some community leaders who are going to say a few words. Alana Mackinson, a fourth-year medical student at NOSM University, Richard Eberhardt from UFCW Locals 175 and 633, and Leanna Holmes, the president of ETFO Rainbow's Teacher Local. Alana, I'm going to turn the floor over to you first. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. It is a real pleasure to be here to support Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP team. My name is Alana Mackinson, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at Nossum University. I've had the opportunity to live in Sudbury and train in rural and remote communities across Northern Ontario for the last 3.5 years. My husband and I know what it's like to live in Northern Ontario and not have a family doctor. Not even someone training to work in healthcare is sheltered from the primary care crisis. That is why I support the Ontario NDP's plan to hire 200 family doctors in Northern Ontario and double residency positions at Nossum University. I've had the privilege to train with doctors across Northern Ontario, but we need more of them. And we need to support Northern doctors and communities with an expanded and properly funded locum program. And the Ontario NDP is going to do that.
Right.
When patients need to leave their communities to access specialist care, they need more financial support. The Ontario NDP will expand the Northern Health Travel Grant to ease the cost burden on patients and their families traveling for care. Yes. I had the pleasure of spending my third year of training in Timmins, Ontario with the Timmins family team. I experienced the breadth of care rural family doctors provide, including care in the emergency room and with hospitalized patients. I saw firsthand the value of primary care teams and the consequences of patients not having access to a family doctor. And that is why I support Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP's plan to invest in well-resourced, fully staffed primary healthcare teams to ensure continuity of care and to keep people out of the emergency room. Ontario needs a government that is going to build a healthcare system that supports timely access to quality healthcare while creating safe working conditions and fair wages for all healthcare workers. As a future doctor, I want a provincial government who's going to support Ontario's public healthcare system and not undermine it by using public money to invest in private healthcare clinics.
Shameful.
Yeah.
Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP understand what is needed to fix healthcare and ensure patients across Ontario have access to care where and when they need it. That is why they have my support.
Thank you so much.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Eberhardt. Taking a little bit of time out of my day, working with the United Food and Commercial Workers to be here to support the Ontario NDP in their Northern Ontario platform launch. It's great to have you here, Marit.
Thank you.
All the Northern candidates. I spend every day with retail workers, hospitality workers, food service workers. This is the group you may remember as the heroes of the frontline heroes of the pandemic. Not long ago. Now they're the group that's probably the most vulnerable to the impact and the increase in the cost of living. The lack of affordability for these workers means they're spending every dime of their income on their everyday needs. There's nothing left to save for retirement. Buying a home is completely out of the question. And they really don't even have the capacity to handle unexpected expenses. I heard just a couple weeks ago, just before the end of the month, from a long-term employee, seniority, specialized job, who had his hours cut back. And this worker was already overdrawn on his rent, could not buy groceries, and was worried that his $200 of shortage was going to mean he was going to be evicted. And that is the reality for too many vulnerable workers in Northern Ontario and across Ontario. It really underscores the problem, and you heard Marit bring it up, about housing here in Northern Ontario, across the province. We know that buying a house is simply not realistic for most workers, even middle-class workers. So that leaves us to rent. And the rental costs are skyrocketing, and the impact is spilling out on our streets. And what you've got is a government in the previous government that just has turned its back on renters. Northern Ontario workers need real rent control. They need it today, and they're only going to get it from Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP. And they deserve a plan, a real plan, to make home ownership realistic again. And again, they're only going to get that from Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP. Make no mistake, Doug Ford's failures and broken promises on our healthcare system are also costing Northerners. I'll give you another quick example. I was talking with a worker yesterday who was very concerned that he'd been exposed to a noxious gas in his workplace. Very serious situation, but it turned out okay. He was experiencing symptoms, no family doctor, no nurse practitioner clinic, 8 hours in the ER. What did he do instead? He paid for access to an online doctor. So out of pocket to get that immediate care that he needed, so that he could then go to his employer and get the accommodations that he needed. We have a situation where decision makers are buddies with organizations like Shoppers Drug Mart, non-union by the way. It only makes sense for the decision makers to starve the system of primary care, physicians, nurse practitioners, to close ERs across Northern Ontario, to close clinics that people depend on. And who benefits from that? People that are going to laugh all the way to the bank. So we can't allow this to continue. The Ontario NDP is not going to allow this to continue. The North needs investment in our primary care systems. We need affordability for our workers. And we know we can't trust the Conservatives. We can't trust the Liberals. The workers of Northern Ontario need change. We need it today. And only Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP are going to bring that change.
Thank you. Thank you to Marit, and thank you to our NDP MPPs and going to be MPPs who are here with us today. I am Leanna Holm. I am the president of the ETFO Rainbow Teacher Local, representing approximately 750 full-time teachers in Sudbury, Espanola, and Manitoulin Island. I am proud to be standing here alongside these MPPs seeking re-election and new faces that will add more representation by the NDP across my membership. What's the problem? Why am I here today? I'm a teacher. I'm standing here before you today because there's $1,500 less per student funding since Doug Ford came into office in 2018. That means billions of dollars of cuts to the education system since 2018. There are 70,000 children waiting for autism supports. Let that sink in. 95% of our schools need mental health supports. 77% of our ETFO members say that they have personally experienced or witnessed their colleagues being the victim of violence in schools. Learning has been disrupted because the Ford government refuses to invest in our public education system. Our schools are suffering from chronic underfunding, under-resourcing, understaffing, creating environments where students' needs are going unmet every single day. We need change. We need a provincial government that values education and is willing to invest in it. Students feel it and parents feel it. In a recent survey that ETFO did, they found that more than half of parents with school-age children believe that the public education system has gotten worse in the past 3 years. It has. 80% strongly agree that the Ford government should invest in public schools because it is hurting our students. And more than 67% of Ontarians agree that the funding should be increased. This study also shows that parents are worried. They're worried about increasing violence. They're worried about lack of mental health supports, long waits for autism supports, large classes where it's impossible to have any kind of one-on-one. It's about an educator in shortage as well. We're having a hard time attracting people to a profession where this is the reality. These pleas have gone on deaf ears for too long. We need more support, and we need it now. Together, we can change this. Our kids have waited absolutely long enough. They can't wait another year for student funding. Classes need to be smaller. Special education supports need to be timely with access to assessments, more support for kids' mental health, and more support for our multi-language learners who are coming into our schools, and we need support to support them. Let's work together and elect a government that will invest in our kids' futures. Our students cannot do more with less. Public schools are the great equalizer for many. Students depend on teachers for support and to fill in gaps, but teachers cannot be the only answer. Our schools need investment. We need government partners that value our publicly funded education. The NDP, with Marit Stiles at the helm, is the only, and I'm going to say that again, the only party that has come up with a platform that includes elementary schools. That is why I'm here today. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's up to me now to wrap that up. I just want to thank everybody, and thank you so much to the three of you for your words. Thank you to our team for being here and all the workers that are standing with us today. Look, you heard it here. We have got to make some changes in the province of Ontario and here in Northern Ontario. First time I came to Northern Ontario was about 30 years ago. I used to work on issues around supporting northern communities and improving access to health care. It breaks my heart to see the state of things in Northern Ontario today and across this province. We cannot afford 4 more years of Doug Ford and the Conservatives. It has never been more clear. And so I'm very happy that we were able to come here to Sudbury in this beautiful space to announce our Northern platform. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Please line up behind the, please line up behind the mic for questions. Please line up behind the mic for questions so we can all hear you. For those on the line, please press *1 to get in the lineup.
Hello.
Bonjour, bon après-midi. Hi.
Bon après-midi.
I'm wondering, what do you make of Doug Ford using footage from his DC trip to put together what looks like a partisan ad? The ad was posted online, was removed, they removed the PC branding, reposted it. Do you think it's fair play?
Well, look, as soon as we noticed that and called him out, a little while later, they took it down. If that isn't a sure sign of guilt, I don't know what is. You know, look, the Integrity Commissioner has been very clear about this. They were not to use that event for partisan purposes. He turned around and did it right away. We will be asking Elections Ontario and the Integrity Commissioner to look into this, absolutely. But you can, you know, it has never been more clear that Doug Ford will do anything and everything it takes to hold on to power for power's sake. He has only called this election to save his own job. And I think Ontarians see through that. They know that the issues that they care about are issues that have gotten, things that have gotten worse under his watch after 7 years. And so I think, you know, you're not going to see the end of that. He'll keep doing it. He'll keep breaking the rules. He's under RCMP criminal investigation right now for his carving up of the Greenbelt, and that won't be the last of it.
And with the huge snowstorm we've seen in parts of the province today, do you have any concern about voter turnout should we see similar weather on election day?
Well, I think that Doug Ford called a snap election in the middle of the winter, hoping that people wouldn't get to the polls. But you know what I'm hearing as I go around the province of Ontario is people are not going to stand for it. I think as people are kind of waking up to the idea that there's an election in the middle of the winter, there's a lot of people out there who are willing to make their way to the polls through a snowstorm, let me tell you, to cast their vote for change and for new ideas, and I think for a government on their side. A couple weeks ago, Doug Ford quit his job as the Premier of Ontario. I'm applying for that job right now so that we can be a government that's on the side of Ontarians.
Thank you. This is Radio Canada. Being safe, talking about the health system in French, seems to be a problem in the north. What are you planning to do about it? You can answer in French.
Oui, OK. Alors, Absolument, c'est un problème ici. Et, il faut qu'on peut offrir les soins de santé, les médecins qui peuvent parler la même langue, votre langue, français ou une autre langue, si ça c'est votre langue maternelle. Et je pense que c'est absolument une priorité. Nous avons un plan increase le numéro de médecins ici dans le Nord, mais aussi que les médecins reflètent la langue, la culture de la Nord. C'est aussi important qu'ils parlent français, particulièrement pour les franco-ontariens et franco-ontariennes, et c'est assez important quand nous parle avec notre médecin, dans les soins de santé, qu'on peut parler notre langue. Ouais.
We're going to take for our colleague in CBC,
you want me to say it in English?
Yeah.
I might be able to do that. So what I was saying is, and I hope I said it clearly enough for you, yeah, absolutely. The question was, is it important that we offer healthcare in languages that people speak here in Northern Ontario? And I think that is absolutely essential. It is essential that you are able, particularly when you're talking about your healthcare provider, to be able to communicate clearly about your needs, what you're feeling, what's happening with you, and to receive information that's clear in your language. So we know that that has to be a priority. It's not just about hiring any doctors and specialists. It's also about reflecting those languages in the people that work here in Northern Ontario, and that they can communicate effectively in the communities that they're in. And that also applies to First Nations communities too, by the way. Yeah.
Howdy, everybody.
Hi.
Marit, this region, very, very large region of the North, has been very important and very positive for your party over the last, let's say, decade. In the last election, the PCs did make some gains here. I don't think in this campaign the PC leader has been up here yet. Just wondering how crucial you view the North to your party's potential success in this election.
Well, look, I want to say, first of all, I think that respect for Northern Ontario is a critical issue in this election. You know, Doug Ford wants to exploit the North for his own ends, but he isn't really putting back in the investment that Northern communities deserve and need. And I think for New Democrats, you know, we've always had a strong team in Northern Ontario, but that's because we respect and we fight for Northern Ontario. The people that are standing with me, you know, this is in their blood. They come from these places. They represent a lot of the sectors that are important up here. You know, they're working people. And I think that that's why we have been so effective at fighting for Northern Ontario. But there's no question that, you know, Doug Ford takes the North for granted every single day, and I think Northerners are seeing that. I mean, after 7 long years of Doug Ford and the Conservatives, it has never been more clear that he does not respect Northern Ontario and that he's not delivering what Northern Ontario needs. Food prices are up all across, the cost of everything is up all across Ontario. But in Northern Ontario, just look at how much you're paying for groceries. Look at what you're paying for everyday essentials. Rent is through the roof. The cost of housing through the roof in Northern Ontario. It wasn't very long ago that you could imagine. I mean, Northern Ontario, my goodness, was an affordable place to live, right? People came up here because you could afford to have a good job and buy a home on a working class salary. That is not Northern Ontario today. And we can't, and I know, speaking to many folks across Northern Ontario, one of the big issues is we're losing our young people. We're losing people because there may be jobs, but there's nowhere you can afford to live. There's nowhere you can afford to live, and there aren't necessarily, like we've seen, you know, still mills closing and such. So Doug Ford has not prioritized the North, and I think he's going to pay a price in this election, because what I'm hearing as I go around Northern Ontario, from Sault Ste. Marie to Thunder Bay to Algoma, Manitoulin, all across Northern Ontario, is people want to see change. They are tired of waiting for it. They want a government that's going to hire doctors and fix healthcare up here. They want to make sure somebody's addressing the cost of living and putting money in their pocket. And I'll tell you one I mentioned in my comments, but we need a government that actually takes the safety of Northern highways seriously.
right, I'm going to ask two completely unrelated questions because why not? I can
Okay,
always
go for it.
So the first is just the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. During the pandemic, the government paused, as lots of places in the country did, their reassessments of property values, and it still has not decided what to do with that. And so, you know, given what has happened to property values over the last decade, whoever it is who's premiering in government will, well, have to make that decision, and that's likely a looming significant pocketbook issue. So I'm just wondering what you would do with that decision. And then the second question is, you got some debates coming up, so I'm wondering what your game plan is.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the debates, and I'll just say, as I mentioned here, I think the priorities for us going into this northern debate tomorrow in North Bay are going to be respect for the North, you know, delivering on health care, so because people should be able to get the health care they need when and where they need it. They shouldn't have to travel really far and pay out of pocket to get that health care. Cost of living, I think, is going to be a big issue for us heading into this debate. And of course, as I mentioned, highways and housing. But I'll also add, and you know, in the consortium debate on Monday, again, cost of living, health care, housing, the state of our schools, has been a big priority for me and will be a big priority going into that debate. And of course, you know, delivering a government that's really on the side of Ontarians. But I'll say this, I think that, you know, I think Doug Ford is scared of me. I really do. I don't know. I think he's scared of me because he never comes to question period when I'm there, and he doesn't like to answer my questions in question period. He just doesn't show up to do it. So I think it's time for him to face his fears. And I look forward to him doing that in the Northern debate and on Monday, and to answer for all of his failures.
Right on.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm just curious about mental health and addictions. And locally, we saw the province neglect to fund the Supervisor Thompson site, and we saw them recently fund the Smart Hub program. So I'd like a response to both of those, as well as what the what your party's reaction to the opioid crisis will be in Northern Ontario, in specific, just in light of that, the fact that it's been disproportionately affected.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking today as I was driving into Sudbury about the crosses on the corner and how that grows. And I think there's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from someone who's lost another family member or a friend to this crisis. So it's an epidemic. It's a mental health and addiction crisis that's, I think, decimating many communities, and certainly we're seeing it here in the north and in Sudbury, of course. Those crosses are a stark reminder that we are failing. We are failing those families and those individuals. Here's how we approach this issue. Addiction is a healthcare issue. It is a healthcare issue. And the taking away services and resources without replacing them with something better and bigger and more immediate is absolutely outrageous. And more people will die as a result. So, you know, we believe in injecting significant resources right into the community where people need to be served, right, where they're experiencing this. And we're going to be dramatically increasing the resources there. We also recognize that a big part of ensuring that people have the support they need with whatever mental health or addiction issue they are dealing with, the first person they're often going to be talking with is their primary care provider. So that is an essential piece of ensuring that people are getting the support they need in communities. And then I would just say, you know, I think the heart hubs are, you know, it's a solution. But again, you know, when somebody needs support and they're looking, they're ready, they're in that moment where they need and are ready to get the support that we need them to want to have. They need it to be there right away. You cannot wait months or a year for rehab, right? It has to be there right immediately when you need it. And so until you can address that, unless you can address that, you are letting people down and their families. And I hear it every day from families across the province. And I think, you know, we all as North, and you see this in Northern Ontario, people care about each other. We just want to make sure people are well. Yeah.
And the commitment to hiring more physicians, is there a particular attraction and retention plan? Because I mean, physicians, they have the pick
Yeah.
of the litter as it relates to where to live.
right.
So is there a northern-centered focus to that?
Yes, and I think really critical to that, and I want you to say, I want to tell you, I see this. This is not new, I think, in many communities to have to be looking and trying to kind of compete a little bit for physicians. We know that, but the extent of it right now is something we haven't seen. And it is, I call it like the Hunger Games of medicine, right? Like you're now competing with, I met a guy yesterday who's been living in Toronto for 4 years and just got a family doctor. And I mean, that's actually pretty fast. So you're competing with everywhere. And it's getting harder. So what we really need at this stage, I think, is a Northern Ontario specific strategy. And that's why we're going to set up a Northern Command Center to actually coordinate and address a Northern focused approach to that retention and recruitment strategy. It should not be left up to individual communities to be struggling with that. I see it over and over again. And while we're speaking about healthcare, I do want to mention one other thing, which is I have seen far too many small hospitals in Northern Ontario that are also hemorrhaging healthcare dollars on the verge of real crisis or closing because of the cost of private nursing agencies. We have to address the recruitment and retention of other healthcare workers, including nurses, and we have a very strong plan as well to recruit nurses. And then I would just add, another essential piece to all of this is having those NOSM spaces, right? Because we know how successful that will be in ensuring that people here in Northern Ontario have options here in Northern Ontario and can stay here, because they're much more likely to, and we know they want to. Oh, and one other quick thing, because there's a lot to say, but I don't want to forget it. We can do something right away to help family physicians see more patients. And they've told us what it is. They said, let us do what we want to do, which is see patients. Take the administrative and paperwork back, burden off their desks. And we propose to the government that we can do that right away, get them connected to teams to help support them do that so they can actually see more of the patients that they want to see right away.
On the line, we have Rob Ferguson. Rob, go ahead.
Hi, Rob. You're missing out on some really beautiful weather up here.
Oh, we're having some good stuff down here.
But it is actually really beautiful up here, yes.
Anyway, thanks, Mar. I just wanted to ask, going back to the ad that was up on the Ford campaign's website this morning. So do you think anyone's fooled that it's been reposted without the party logo, without the Protect Ontario tagline?
No, Rob, I don't think anyone is fooled by that, and I think it is a sure sign of guilt as well. I think that he knows and they know they did something wrong, and yet that never seems to stop them. They will always do that. Doug Ford has told you who he is, I don't know how many times. He's shown you who he is. He says he wasn't going to carve up the Greenbelt. He turned around and he did it. He got caught. He backed away. He's under RCMP criminal investigation. The Integrity Commissioner said you can't use that footage for partisan purposes when you go to Washington, D.C. He turned around. He posted it. He doesn't care. You know, we know who he is. Ontarians know who Doug Ford is. He's the guy who's always in it for himself and his friends. And that's all that ever matters. And this election was only ever about his seat and his future. It's never been about Ontario workers and Ontario jobs and Ontario healthcare and the things that actually matter to the people of Ontario.
All right, so basically you're saying that no, given the fact that this ad was posted during a campaign, that it's just clear by implication that it's a campaign.
Well, look, the Integrity Commissioner was very clear about what he could and couldn't do in his trip to D.C. He knows it. His party knows it. They chose to ignore that. They posted that anyways. His intent is crystal clear.
All right, great. Thanks, Mara.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Miigwech. Merci beaucoup d'être ici avec nous.